Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith. The growth of data centers has been good news for nuclear power in Pennsylvania, but meeting growing demand in the future could be a struggle for the electric grid. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennon. Anthony, talk to us a little bit more about what exactly data centers are and why nuclear power stations are such a good fit for these.
Yeah, so data centers are basically the backbone of the internet at this point. A lot of storage, processing, there's growing use for them in artificial intelligence. Basically, this is what keeps a lot of businesses running, a lot of the internet humming, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different use for data centers. But they've been especially growing in recent years. And as more tech companies are looking into making sure their energy sources are cleaner, more reliable, nuclear power has been growing in demand for that. We saw just a couple weeks ago, 3 Mile Island will be revived, coming out of retirement to supply power for Microsoft data center, which will keep the plant running through 2054. Up north of 3 Mile Island, another nuclear energy plant is in agreement with Amazon to power their data center. So we're seeing a lot of growth specifically for nuclear power and data centers, basically trying to get consistent generation, clean energy, and keep the lights on around the clock. Pennsylvania is not necessarily a hub for data centers, though. It's been fairly strong in nuclear energy. It's actually the second biggest nuclear state following Illinois, which people can kind of overlook, but nuclear energy provides about, I believe now it's about a quarter of electricity generation in the state. But generally, other states have been outpacing it for data centers. Virginia is basically not only a national hub, but a global hub for data centers now. It has almost 500 across the state. Pennsylvania has about 71. Neighboring Ohio has 161 data centers, and that seems to be growing even more for the future. So it's becoming a bigger thing, and it's especially important for Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania is part of the PJM grid, which stretches across 13 states and Washington, D.C. It covers 65 million people. And so even aside from the growth of data centers and nuclear power, there's been this question of, can we actually keep up with the demand for power and electricity? Can we keep growing at the time where it's very slow for new energy projects to connect into the grid and get through the red tape and permitting process, while at the same time, we're shutting down a lot of current power plants, generally not because it's their time to retire, but based on energy policy of concerns about, coal plants polluting too much or other issues that are not necessarily a problem with energy generation, but the consequences or what the future of energy policy people want to be.
Even though nuclear plants offer this very reliable source of energy 24/7, 3 Mile Island has been off essentially for 5 years, and turning it back on isn't just like the flip of a switch, is it?
No, it'll take a few years to actually get this going. There's a lot going into it. We've only seen one nuclear plant be switched on, and that's based up in Michigan. I believe it's the Palisades, maybe something like that. But that was the first one that just kicked on recently. 3 Mile Island will be the second one to go through this process. Just as with building a nuclear power plant, it's not a quick or easy path. In Georgia, we had the first nuclear energy plant get built in decades, and that took, I believe, almost a decade of delays and cost overruns. It basically doubled the bill. So unfortunately, nuclear power has a very different regulatory and oversight system than we see for natural gas, for coal plants, for solar energy. It's very time intensive. It's very complex. It takes a lot of time to get the stuff going. So yeah, it'd be great if we were actually interested in rebuilding nuclear power, if it were a quick and easy process, or you retire a coal plant, but you can also kind of kick that back on relatively quick. Nuclear power is not that way, and it's going to be a long process filled with delays. Hopefully nothing major, but it's going to take time. And one of the issues we hear about if you talk to state legislators who are supportive of kicking back on 3 Mile Island is we don't have 5-10 years to just kind of slow walk this. We're seeing warnings from PJM or energy experts that we could start having, grid level issues of stability or reliability within 4 or 5 years. So just now, the fact that we're getting the process going, it may help us in the near term, but it's not necessarily moving at the speed of light.
Anthony, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.